Hey guys, welcome to TST Garage. I'm Bart. In this episode, I have a 22 and up Yamaha MT-10 with me in the shop. We'll be working on the controls. In this video, specifically, we will be focusing on the levers, brake and clutch lever here. The OEM units really accomplish the job pretty well. They're very basic. They are pretty large. They accommodate my mitts pretty good, but I personally like to have adjustment capability, which the left side here on the clutch side, it does lack. The right side, made by Brembo, it does have a little bit of adjustability, but we will want to upgrade that a little bit, as well as upgrading the style and also the less crash prone version of the levers here that I'm holding, the Womet-Tech Evos levers. They will also prevent some of the possibility of breakage in the event of a crash. They are much more minimal, as you can see. They are smaller, shorty levers, we call them. They don't protrude as far. Should the bike go down, the bar end will take the hit and the lever will likely be saved. And that means you can possibly pick up your bike and keep going. Now, these Womet-Tech Evos levers are beautiful. They're executed in 6061 aluminum, CNC machined, black anodized. They do have some nice iconography here, TST Industries and Womet-Tech logos engraved in. There's some really nice 3D machining going on. A pocket has been milled out here and also here to lighten these. These are really the biz. I love these. We use these on all of our builds here in-house on our TST Industries race bikes and street bikes that we build. They look awesome, they feel awesome, they really fit my hands really well, and I bet you guys will agree with me. When you feel these out, you'll realize they do feel great. All right, we do provide these by default with the red anodized adjuster set. We do have optional adjuster sets that you can purchase and change so that you can further customize your build. We do have a separate video instructing how to change the adjuster. So if you want to drop this in your cart along with the lever purchase, you'll be enabled to install these on the bike and also configure the color combination that you prefer. The installation of these parts is fairly simple. On the left side, it's just drop and replace. On the right side, we're gonna get a little bit more into the OEM lever. We'll have to do a couple extra steps than we typically do, but it's all very simple stuff, and I'm gonna show you how to do it using only the very basic tools that I have in my toolbox, mainly sockets, hammer, and Allen keys. All right, let's get going. The first step will involve loosening the adjustment nut on the cable. I'm gonna depressurize the cable or help myself with the detent mechanism. I'm gonna pull back on the detent mechanism to allow me to adjust this outboard into the perch. We wanna decrease the tension on the cable, and then when we get almost to the end, we want to line up the slot in the adjuster with the slot that goes through the perch. Now I'll grab a 10mm socket, remove the nut right in here behind the micro switch. This nut is coaxial with the pivot bolt here. Once this starts coming down and the keyway in the carriage portion of this bolt up top moves out, you're gonna have to press it in so that it locates for you so you can actually spin the nut off. Most of the way down, it just becomes easier to use the socket by hand. All right, once the nut comes off, we can pop the pivot bolt out. Now, this particular lever will have to clear out in this sort of a motion. We will need to clear it out of its pivot location, dodge the switch housing, and then make sure that we don't damage the button for the micro switch here. Now we'll need to take the cable and get it out of the adjustment mechanism. I'm going to push the cable end out of the adjuster, and now it clears out. Get the pull out. Now there's an additional part here that we will have to scavenge. It's a bushing that enables easy rotation. Push that out. I'm going to clean it off because it has grime on it. I'm going to repack it with grease. Anytime I change my levers, I like to repack them with fresh grease. That way they are serviced and They're guaranteed to work. Dab a little on the outside. Dab a little on the inside. The grease I'm using is a high temp bearing grease. Any synthetic or mineral grease will work as long as it's bearing grade grease that resists water washout. So you don't want water soluble greases. We'll grab our new lever, pop the bushing in, get our cable installed in the pull area, and basically it's the reverse order of disassembly here. Now I'm gonna seat the rotating features into the perch lightly, making sure that I do not stress that button. There is a pushing lever that engages with that button. If you were just to slam this in, you will shear the button off. So lightly bring it into position here, and then you'll need to press down on this button to allow the rest of the movement to happen. Once you have coaxial alignment on the lever and the perch, go ahead and pop in the pivot bolt, and then make sure that it pops into its keyway. And at this point, the remaining step here will be to replace the bottom nut. I'm going to tighten this down, make sure that I haven't impeded the motion in my lever. It's nice and tight, nothing's jiggling. Clean off any excess grease that I may have spilled out that will collect grime and dirt, so we don't want to do that. All right, we're nice and clean here. Let's adjust the cable tension. As you can see, I have a good amount of motion here, so we want to take up a little bit of that slack. So we're going to test lock to lock, left and right. We have a little bit of play, and now this is pretty tight, which means that there may be enough tension on the cable in the full right lock that we may be taking pressure off of our plates, our clutch plates. So let's loosen that just a little bit. All right, that's feeling better. Don't want to have tension on the cable in either position or anywhere in the range of your steering, because then you might be taking pressure off the plates and you'll smoke your plates over time. All right, this is installed and ready to go. One last thing I want to mention is at this point you have the capability of adjusting the lever. So you can keep it far from the bar, or you can get it in if you have smaller hands, or this suits you best. The choice will be yours. I typically set these in the middle for left and right, and then I go from there. I'll go take some cruising rides. Don't expect too much out of the bike during those cruising rides. Feel out what feels best, adjust them, and then go from there. All right, we're done on the left side here. Clutch is complete. Let's hop on over to the brake. Using the same 10mm socket, we are going to take off the nut here below the pivot bolt for the brake lever. Then I'm going to switch over to a 4mm Allen. We'll remove our pivot bolt from the inside of the master cylinder. Once it starts skipping up and down while you're rotating it, it is disengaged. I'm going to support the lever, maybe wiggle it a little bit, and pull out on that pivot bolt all the way. Pull up with the tool. Now this guy's loose, however, we do have our actual piston connection here. It does have a boot around it. What we want to do in the next step is make sure we don't dislodge the boot from the master cylinder body. We want the boot to clear from the pushing mechanism that sits in the lever. So I'm going to peel the boot backwards while I apply tension to the lever, and this plunger that engages with the piston mechanism inside will now clear out of its boot locating feature here. There is a shoulder on the boot component here that engages with this shoulder cut into this turned part on the lever. Once you clear it off past this shoulder, it just slips off. We're going to come to a surface to work on at this point because we have to disassemble this lever into two components. This inner pivot component and the outer lever body will need to come apart so that we can extract our piston engagement mechanism. For that, I will be using a larger socket that has a big hole through it. This will be the surface that I'm going to be knocking out this bushing through. I just have another socket, random socket that will hold it for me when I'm not holding it. I have a 7mm deep socket for a 1/4 inch drive. Not every single brand of this socket will work. You just have to make sure that your socket is just slightly smaller than the outer bushing diameter, and that will permit you to pound this through. I do have better tools that are more well suited for knocking out bushings, but I realize most people don't have that in their arsenal, so I'm going to do the process. I'm going to perform the process with the simplest possible tools that you will find in your toolbox. Let's knock this thing out. I tap lightly so that it progressively gets out without damaging. Okay, bushing's out. Now, as we take out the socket, these two pieces will separate. There is a spring loading this component against this component here, so make sure you hold it or use eye protection or something so you don't get a spring shot at your eyes. All right, now all of these components are separate. We are going to put away this component, and this one spring goes as well, and now we reuse these components. Going to clean off our bushing, clean this guy off, get some new grease applied. Since our pivot bolt engages with the inside of that bushing, I'm going to clean off the pivot bolt as well. And I'm going to use that pivot bolt to distribute that grease inside that bushing. Going to get this guy greased up just a little bit. Just a little superficial grease. Make sure the surfaces are slidey and don't have a lot of friction. All right. Let's grab our lever here. The bushing will go in the main pivot hole, and we will have to tap this guy in. For that purpose, I will grab our socket again. This time I'm going to line it with a cloth because I don't want to damage the surface. To make sure that the bushing actually is coplanar. The face of the bushing is coplanar with this face and also on this face. That feels good in here. Our piston engagement mechanism is going to fit into this slot when the lever is not mounted into the master cylinder. It does have a lot of play in it. Once it's mounted in there, it'll be nice and secure. Let's get that over to the bike and start the installation process. Going to bring the lever up to the master cylinder here. We are going to have to do several actions simultaneously. So we need to align these surfaces within the pivot area of our master cylinder while we fit the plunger portion of this mechanism into that boot. Also, need to make sure we're not damaging the button here. We're nowhere near it, so we should be good to go. Now, I just applied a little bit of pressure inboard or towards the rear on this boot and everything just popped together. So it seems to be very easy from here forward for the actual alignment of our pivot area with the master cylinder. We will have to press against the master just a little bit. I have my pivot bolt here close to me in preparation for reinstallation. I'm gonna get these surfaces mated together. Get the pivot bolt bottomed out, get it nice and tight. And then I'm gonna lock down on it with the nut. Now a little bit of cleanup action, making sure that I remove any excess grease so it doesn't collect a bunch of grime on us. And I will call this installation complete. Now again, we have a pretty good amount of adjustment here. I do like to do a safety check, making sure that I can get to full bottom of the brake without hitting any surfaces. And here, that is a lot of brake. That is going over the bars amount of brake before it actually contacts. So I feel like we're good here. Now I'm gonna take this bike for a ride, check it out, make sure that the controls work with my hands, change the settings around until I find equilibrium for what I feel, and that'll be it. All right, in about 15 minutes, we went from these boring OEM levers to these awesome Womet-Tech Evos levers here. We've added style, adjustability, and better feel in my opinion. If you agree, check out tstindustries.com. We have these parts ready to go, ready to send to you. We also have other parts for this bike and other bikes you may have in your stable. I wanna thank you for watching. Ride safe, give me a like and subscribe, and I like comments, so please converse with me. See you later.